The 3 Elven Rings of Power were the last to be made and were crafted by Celebrimbor, the Elven Smith of a region, without direct interference from Sauron. Because of this, they were untouched by his hand and free from his initial corruption. However, they were still tied to the One Ring and could be indirectly controlled through it. These rings were created to heal, preserve, and protect, not to dominate or corrupt. Narya, also called the Ring of Fire or the Red Ring, was set with a ruby. Its powers included inspiring courage, resisting tyranny, and kindling hope in times of despair. It enhanced the bearer's endurance and spirit. Initially held by Gil-galad, Narya was later entrusted to Círdan the Shipwright, who passed it to Gandalf upon the wizard's arrival in Middle-earth. Gandalf used Narya subtly to inspire and rally the free peoples during the War of the Ring. After the destruction of the One Ring, Narya's power faded, and Gandalf took it with him to the Undying Lands. Nenya, known as the Ring of Water or the Ring of Adamant, was made of mithril and set with a white stone, possibly a diamond. It was associated with preservation, concealment, and protection from evil. Galadriel was its most notable bearer. She used it to maintain the beauty and secrecy of Lothlorien, shielding the forest from decay and external threats. Nenya's influence was subtle but powerful, helping Galadriel resist Sauron's growing darkness. Like the others, its power was bound to the fate of the One Ring and ended with its destruction. Vilya, the Ring of Air, also known as the Blue Ring or the Ring of Sapphire, was the most powerful of the 3. Set with a large blue gem, it symbolized healing and preservation. It was first given to Gil-galad and later passed to Elrond. With Vilya, Elrond preserved the safety and healing powers of Rivendell throughout the Third Age. Its powers likely included foresight, protection against remote observation, and possibly some elemental control. When the One Ring was destroyed, Vilya's power was undone, and Elrond departed with it into the west. The 7 Dwarven Rings. The 7 rings of the Dwarf Lords were forged under Sauron's direct influence. Though Celebrimbor and the Elven Smiths initially crafted them, Sauron had a hand in their final shaping and distribution. His goal was to corrupt the dwarves, much as he would later succeed in doing with men. However, his plan did not work as intended. Each of the 7 was given to the leaders of the great dwarven houses. The rings amplified the dwarves' natural talents as miners and craftsmen. They caused immense wealth to accumulate, resulting in vast treasure hoards and powerful kingdoms. However, this wealth came at a cost. The rings intensified the dwarves' greed and pride, driving many of them into ruinous obsessions. Despite this, the rings failed to bring the dwarves under Sauron's control. Unlike men, dwarves proved resistant to domination. The rings did not render them invisible, nor did they transform them into wraiths. This resilience stemmed from the dwarves' innate toughness and strong-willed nature. Nonetheless, their increased lust for gold often led to internal conflict and external threats, particularly from dragons attracted to their hoards. Over time, 4 of the 7 were destroyed by dragonfire. Sauron managed to recover at least 2 before his fall, and the final known ring was taken from Thrain II, father of Thorin Oakenshield, when he was captured and imprisoned by Sauron in the dungeons of Dol Guldur. By the time of the War of the Ring, none of the 7 remained in dwarven hands. The 7 dwarven rings played a limited but impactful role in Middle-earth's history. They never fulfilled Sauron's ambition of domination, but they contributed to the downfall of several dwarven kingdoms through the greed and ruin they fostered. The 9 Rings for Mortal Men. The 9 rings were given to mortal kings and sorcerers, men whom Sauron viewed as the most susceptible to corruption. These rings were forged in a region, like the others, but Sauron directly influenced their creation. His goal was complete domination through these rings, and unlike the dwarves or elves, he succeeded. Each of the 9 granted its bearer great power, extended life, and increased authority over others. These men became mighty rulers, feared and admired in their time. However, the gift of prolonged life came with a price. Over time, the rings consumed their wearers' identities and free will, drawing them deeper into the Shadow Realm. Eventually, they lost all physical form and became the Nazgul, ring wraiths, entirely enslaved to Sauron's will. The Nazgul were invisible to the naked eye and existed primarily in the unseen realm. They could only be perceived by others when wearing cloaks of armor, and even then, only partially. They were most powerful when Sauron himself was strong, and they remained bound to the One Ring which governed their fate. Their leader, the Witch King of Angmar, became Sauron's most deadly servant and led the assault against Gondor in the War of the Ring. Only 2 of the 9 ring wraiths were known by name, the Witch King and Khamûl the Easterling. The others remained unnamed in Tolkien's texts. It is unclear whether the Nazgul continued to wear their rings or if Sauron kept them in his possession, as he did with some of the Dwarven rings. What is certain is that the 9 rings did exactly what Sauron intended. They stripped away the humanity of their bearers and turned them into tools of fear, domination, and control. The destruction of the One Ring at Mount Doom broke Sauron's power and destroyed the 9. Without the one to anchor them, the magic of the 9 disintegrated, and the Nazgul were finally vanquished. The One Ring. The One Ring, also called the Ruling Ring, was forged by Sauron himself in the fires of Mount Doom during the Second Age. It was not simply another ring of power, it was the Master Ring, created to control all of the others. To accomplish this, Sauron poured a large amount of his own essence and will into the ring, binding his power to it. This made the One Ring uniquely powerful and inherently evil. The One Ring had a range of abilities. It granted its bearer invisibility. By shifting them partially into the unseen realm, it significantly extended the bearer's life, but also slowly corrupted their soul. The longer someone possessed the ring, the more it twisted their desires, eroded their moral compassion, and drew them toward domination and paranoia. The ring also enhanced the bearer's innate power or will, making strong individuals even more formidable. Its most dangerous power was its influence over the other rings of power. The Elven Rings, although hidden, protected from Sauron, were still linked to the One. If he regained the One Ring, their power would fall under his control. The rings of men and dwarves, more directly influenced by Sauron, were effectively subservient to the One from the beginning. The One Ring was inscribed with a verse in the Black Speech of Mordor, visible only when heated. One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness, bind them. This encryption perfectly summarized its function: to dominate the will of all ring bearers and bring them under Sauron's control. After Sauron's initial defeat, the ring was cut from his finger by Isildur, who claimed it, but failed to destroy it. Isildur was later killed, and the ring was lost for over 2 millennia. It was eventually found by Sméagol, who became Gollum under its influence. The ring then passed to Bilbo Baggins, and finally to Frodo, who bore it to Mount Doom during the War of the Ring. Though Frodo faltered at the last moment, the ring was destroyed when Gollum seized it and fell into the fire. Its destruction ended Sauron's power, caused the collapse of Barad-dûr, and marked the conclusion of the Third Age. Minor and Lesser Rings. In addition to the 20 major rings of power, the 3 for the elves, 7 for the dwarves, 9 for men, and the One Ring, there were lesser rings crafted during the Second Age. These were made during the early stages of Sauron's collaboration with the elven smiths in a region, likely as experimental works to refine the craft of ring making. These lesser rings lacked the full potency or purpose of the greater rings, but still possessed magical properties. Gandalf mentions these minor rings briefly in The Lord of the Rings, warning that while they may appear harmless or weaker, they are still perilous to mortals. Their exact number is unknown, and Tolkien did not provide extensive detail about their individual powers. However, it is assumed that some granted minor enhancements or charms, and others may have had ill effects similar to the greater rings, though to a lesser degree. Sauron's intent was to use all such rings, regardless of strength, as tools to ensnare the rulers of Middle-earth. The minor rings likely lacked the durability or power to produce lasting influence, and many have been lost, discarded, or forgotten over time. There is also little record of who possessed these lesser rings, and none play a major role in the narrative events of the Second or Third Age. While they did not shape the course of history as the major rings did, the existence of these lesser rings underscores Sauron's far-reaching strategy, testing, corrupting, and perfecting magical tools to dominate others. Their incomplete designs and secondary role in the legendarium reflect the scope of Sauron's manipulations and the depth of his long-term plan. To explore more secrets of Middle-earth, watch our next video, The Origin of the Elves, in detail, where we break down the origin of the Elves, the rise of Morgoth, and the epic battles that shaped the world long before the One Ring was ever forged.